Hey guys, welcome to today's module of the Content Machine training course. I've mentioned in previous modules that as a content marketer, your job is entrepreneurial in nature. It's not just going out and creating stuff. That's what bloggers do. As content marketers, we need to be entrepreneurial. And if you want to be a good content marketer, your job is to grow a business. And if you're going to do that, you need to understand what a great business looks like. So if you work for someone else, maybe you can just think about these things in terms of who you're working for and how many of these fundamentals are in place. Or perhaps you can skip over this module. But if you're an entrepreneur, you're working for a startup, or you've got a new business, or you've got your own business, then this stuff is really critical to understand. In my first book, The 7-Day Startup, I delve into this stuff a lot more. And there's also a free 7-Day Startup video course at 7daystartup.co. Very similar to this course, but based around the idea of launching businesses, high-growth businesses quickly. This module is a little bit of a summary of what I learned putting together WP Curve and putting together that 7-Day Startup idea. So let's get stuck in. I want to just put these logos here for a couple of reasons. One is I've mentioned HubSpot and Moz before. I mentioned Buffer quite a lot in the Content Machine book, and WP Curve is my business. The reason I have these here is because these are businesses that are fundamentally strong businesses. They're also businesses that are doing well in content marketing, and they're businesses that I look up to. So the first three I look up to, and the reason I put my logo next to them is not because I think my business is on par with them. It's because I want my business to be like them. And that's when I put WP Curve together. I look at companies like that and I want to emulate their success. So that's important for you to do as well. Think about who's doing this well, who do you look up to, and how you can be more like them without copying them, but just what can you learn from them. And these characteristics, 10 characteristics I came up with, were a result of me having my own battles with entrepreneurship, starting businesses that failed and some that succeeded, and also observing what other companies like HubSpot, Moz, and Buffer have done with their businesses. So the first thing is that they are fundamentally profitable. And what I notice with a lot of startups or with solo businesses particularly is people will start businesses that rely so heavily on them and their weird mix of skills that when it comes time to delegating all of those things to other people, it becomes unprofitable to do that. So with my agency, this was exactly the situation I was in. I was doing SEO and hosting and design and copywriting and conversion optimization, and you name it. I was doing all this stuff myself because I'd taught myself how to do it, even programming. But when it came time to actually paying someone to do all these things for me, there was no way I could make money selling $1,000 websites. So I didn't know it, but for 7 years, my business was fundamentally unprofitable. So there's a simple exercise you can do here. What I like to do is imagine my business at a certain amount of scale, say 100 monthly customers. Figure out how much you think it's going to cost to service those customers, assuming you did nothing. You delegate everything that you do on your to-do list. You have people that manage the clients, that do the work, all the skills required to get that job done. How much does that cost you? You should be doubling that for your pricing. So if it costs you $1,000 a month theoretically to service these clients, then I would be charging $2,000 at the absolute minimum per month per client. And once you do this exercise, you realize that a lot of businesses are very, very hard to work with the fundamentals. And with WP Curve, we hire affordable developers around the world. If we didn't do that, the business would not work. So that's a fundamental feature of our business. Number two I've got here is they operate in a large market. And a lot of people talk about niching down. I don't like this message because I think that great businesses like the ones I mentioned here are operating in very big markets. Like you can definitely niche too far. And so I prefer the idea of going into a big market and giving people a unique spin on what you're doing and getting the attention of a small percentage of that market. They naturally build assets. And I mentioned that briefly before. If you look at something like Moz, they have their own search engine that crawls the web to better analyze how SEO works. Now, if I went to start an SEO software business today, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to do that. They spent years and millions of dollars building this thing. So a lot of these companies, software as a service especially, naturally build assets that are very, very hard to replicate. This is a challenge with services. It's a challenge for us with WP Curve. It's something we have to work on over time, like internal systems, working on a brand that is a natural asset, working on a team that's a natural asset. But think about, as a result of working on your business, are you going to actually build assets that are going to be difficult for other people to have for themselves? Or can someone just come in straight away and just replicate your business easily? Great businesses offer a simple, relatable differentiator. And this is a concept that I think is so powerful because I think businesses grow through word of mouth. If you think of something like Uber isn't a complete revelation. What's the word? revolutionization. That's a difficult word. It's not a complete revolutionization of the transportation industry. All it is a small tweak on an existing product. The existing product is taxis. Everyone knows what a taxi is. They can relate to that. And all Uber is saying is we offer a simple alternative to that. With Uber, you can use the app. You know when the startups, when the taxi's going to arrive there. You know how much it's going to cost. It tracks that for you. You know it's going to be cheaper than a taxi. So there's a couple of little things that you know are going to be different about Uber. It's going to be nice and clean. So there's those simple things that fall into conversations when people talk about it. Now, to me, that's a simple, relatable differentiator. People can relate to that. They know what a taxi is. When they're talking about taxis, Uber naturally gets into that conversation. With WP Curve, we tried to replicate that as well. So people know what developers are. We just came in and say, well, we're just like a developer, except we're always available. We're available 24/7. You can have unlimited jobs. So anytime you need a problem solved, we solve that, and you don't have to pay any more for that. So we've reduced that invoice anxiety and that responsiveness anxiety associated with every other web developer option that they have. So again, they know what the service is, they can relate to it, but we just offer a simple tweak on that. So how can you do that with your business? Enter into an existing market that people understand and tweak the offerings slightly to get their attention. They focus on consistent revenue and high lifetime value of the customer. So all of these businesses here are, for the most part, recurring. Software as a service these days is almost 100% recurring, either monthly plans or yearly plans. If you're doing project-based businesses, it's going to be very hard for you to get that consistent revenue. If you're doing very small product prices like $9 ebooks and stuff like that, it's going to be very hard to get that high lifetime value of the customer. So think about how much customers are worth to you long-term and how to get that consistent revenue. These businesses are much easier to grow than a business that doesn't meet that criteria. Number 6 is they invest in a memorable brand. And I think this is so fundamental. I think most people don't get this. If you're willing to take the leap of faith with design and branding, you're going to get miles ahead of the rest. And with my businesses, I spend a lot of money on design and branding. I take it really seriously. Startups do exactly the same thing. People who are working for themselves often just neglect this and do it on the cheap. And what they execute is no good and is not taken seriously by people. And they never know because people will not tell you that. So startups are fanatical about their brands. And I think you should be too. Startups and successful businesses, for the most part, are built by teams and not individuals. And I know that a lot of people in my audience tend to be individuals. And when I say this to them, it really creates a bit of anxiety in their mind because they're working for themselves and they don't see a problem with that. But I'm simply making the observation that the majority of startups, the majority of successful businesses are not started by individuals. So if you are working by yourself, you really need to think about whether or not that's the best way for you to attack this business. They know how to say no. This is another problem I see with the small business, the solo entrepreneur type community. They just say yes to everything. And as a result, they get to that unprofitable scenario where they're just doing way too much and they can't profitably systemize what they're doing. And excellent startups offer one simple thing and they say no to absolutely everything else. At WP Curve, we said no to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of work that we could have done because it didn't fit into what we were building. And I believe that what we're building is profitable and scalable, and that's what I want to do, and that's the best way I can serve my customers, not by doing things that they want that we can't do profitably. So you need to learn how to say no. Great businesses understand the power of monthly growth, and this can be extremely powerful. If you're growing on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, it does not take long, very long at all to grow a very significant business. If you're going really up and down, which is what the agency world is like, which one-off projects is like, and my background was like, you just lose that power of momentum and that monthly growth. So I really want you to think about consistent revenue, ideally recurring if you can make that work. If you can't, how can you make your revenue more consistent with your business model? And I think startups think long-term as well. Like, I think if you're sort of stuck in that internet marketer crowd about one-off launches and how much you're going to make on the next project, I don't think these good businesses, these high-growth startups, I don't think they do that. Like, I think they really think long-term. They think about, how do I grow 10% per week or 10% per month for 5 years and create a multi-million-dollar business, not how do I do a launch next week and make $10,000. And that's a way of thinking about business that I think you can adopt no matter who you are listening to this course. So I hope that stuff has made you think a little bit and you think about your business and what sort of changes you can make. All right, guys, I'll see you guys in the next module.